Hey guys, welcome back. This is another crash course on Vuex for Vue.js kind of applications. So Vuex is a library which we can use it for the state management for Vue.js based applications. Okay, so generally in last video we have understand about Redux toolkit. So that is the library we can use it for React.js application, and this Vuex is specifically used for Vue.js applications. Okay, so same kind of state management, but here it is using a slight different architecture than your Redux toolkit. So here it is using Redux plus the Flux architecture. Okay, so this is the architecture diagram of Vuex. But before we jump into this complete architecture diagram, so what I want to say is the last video we have made one example, right? With the React and Redux toolkit, we made an example. The same example I have taken over here because three components we have. We have a counter component, employees component, and users component for fetching data from server. So I have taken a same amount of components and same kind of architecture and same kind of routing system like the previous video of Redux toolkit, because if I can tell you in a same example and same component, so you get have a clear idea how can you make the things with Vue.js and Vuex, and also Redux toolkit with React.js. Okay, and coming videos we also see NGRX with Angular with the same kind of example. Okay, so now let's have a look here. For counter, I'm not using. I think yeah. For employees, I'm not using Redux. For counter, I'm using Redux. Okay, so let me check once. I guess yeah, counter I'm using Vuex. Employees no. Okay. So problem here, same story which we have understand the last video of Redux. So for counter, I have increment the counter. I can decrement or increment by also. Okay. So now the counter value is there. Some state data has changed. Now when I went to employees and came back, still the counter value is there because the state is alive, because the state is actually not coming from the counter component. It's actually coming from the Redux store. Okay. That's why it is still there even though you switch between multiple other components. Okay, but employees is not connected with the Vuex state management, and this is locally maintained a state. So when it is locally maintained state, the problem will be, so when I select a two employees, okay, so it was selected, so 1 and 2, and then I switched to another component and came back, it's lapse because it is maintaining a local state. So now what we have to do is we have to convert it to a Vuex state management. Okay, so first what we have to do is we will make this whole application without Vuex, and then I'll tell you how to configure Vuex for the for this Vue.js application. Okay, and also I'll tell you how to fetch data from server. Okay, how to make your Vue.js application connect with server, and also that including Vuex. Okay, so here we have a lot of concepts like actions, state, mutations, okay, and dispatch and all. So down the line we'll see all these concepts and the complete flow. I'll explain with these three examples. Okay, for local state management, the form handling, and also for fetching data from server. So please be with me for this entire video so that you will get a complete understanding of Vuex architecture for local state management, as well as the state data which we can receive from the server connections as well. Okay, so now let's start first how to create this application, and then we'll start off with the local state management, and then we'll convert to the Vuex. So let's start. All right. So now to create a project, so what I will do is I'll go to the folder, and here I'm going to create a project. So I'll just take a copy of the path. I open command prompt. In this, I go to this location. I drive. The command to create any Vue.js project is vue create and your application name. Okay, application name. So I'll do like vue create, and our application name goes to be Vuex crash codes. Okay, and just enter. Okay, So you get these type of options, view mastery and all. But if you don't get these options, don't worry. You can select the one manually select the features. So you can select for manual, and here I need router. You can just give a space over there and Vuex, and yeah, that's all. Okay, so choose. You can. I'm just selected Babel, not TypeScript. I selected router configuration and also the Vuex configuration, and that's all. No unit testing, nothing. And go back to the Vue.js version, and you can select the 3-point text, and yeah. So use history mode for router. Just say Y. ESLint with error prevention. Yes. Okay, ESLint on save. Yes. Dedicated configuration file. No. I select the package.json. Uh, you want to preset the future? No. Just enter. Okay. So depend on your selections, it will create the complete project structure for us. So which create a default folder structures, routing configuration, and Vuex configuration. So based on that, we'll develop. Okay. So we have to wait for a few minutes. So we got the folder structure ready, and so now we have to install two packages. One is Bootstrap and also Axios. So Bootstrap, because we will be using the front-end library is Bootstrap, and Axios for fetching data from server. Okay. So we don't need to install Vuex and all because based on the configuration, it was already done. Okay, while creating the project structure. So these two we need to install. Just say npm install Bootstrap and Axios. So let's copy this path back here, paste. Sorry. You need to go inside view crash course folder structure and then paste it, enter. Okay, so it'll download and install Bootstrap. Okay, so it's done. So now let's jump into the folder structure. Yeah, Vuex crash course. Let's copy the path. Go to your editor, file open, paste, okay, and okay. Okay, so now you got the project structure is ready. Now let me run the server once. Let me run the application first. npm run serve is a command. So it runs on a port number 8080. So let's wait for it to start. I think it's still indexing. I think it's takes some time. Indexing has to finish, and then it will start off your server. Okay, starting. Okay, started. And this is my the default structure which contains already the routing system and all. Okay, we need to make this application. That's fine. Leave it. Okay. And now first of all we need to clear the things which we don't need. So first I go to src and I go to components. I don't need the hello world view, and this hello world view was there in the views of home page. So I'll remove this hello world, and I don't need the import. I don't need the components. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, and I don't need this routing as well. So I go to app.view. I can remove this um, router view, and there is nothing. Just say h2 app component. That's fine. This app. Okay, and I don't need any of these styles. I can delete those styles. Okay. Yep, that's fine. And let's go to routing. If I go to router folder, index.js, so I have a home page and about page. Actually, I don't need about page. I can delete. So about.view is actually not required. Okay. So I think that's fine. Yep. Yeah. First, one last thing is we have not configured Bootstrap yet for this application. So to configure Bootstrap, you go inside main.js. Yeah, here I'll import um, um, you may import in main.js, or else you can configure. All right. So in app dot no, just go to main.js. Just add a bootstrap styles. So let's say import something dot slash node underscore module slash bootstrap slash this slash css slash bootstrap dot css, and also I need import dot slash node underscore modules slash bootstrap slash this and js and bootstrap bundle.js. Okay, so these two we have to configure. I'm not using any font or some icons here. I hope that's fine, and let's check. See, it been already configured with um, bootstrap. And if you want to have any Google font, you can search for Google fonts. Yeah, I can select the regular one is Ubuntu font. Yes, this one. Let me copy the import statement. Yes. Yeah, so where do I do is I don't have any external style sheet, so I'll create in SRC. I create new style sheet, that is style.css. This will become your external style sheet, and let me connect to app.vue. So at import from import style.css, and in style.css I'll add my font awesome import statement, and also for the body tag font family is Ubuntu, right? This one. Okay, all right. So font family is added, and also let's give some background color, something called light green. So light green color. Okay, it's not that green. I wanted to change to some, light, light color. I think even lightest. Okay, okay, this light color, that's fine. Yep. So this setup is ready. So we are done with Bootstrap and font house. I mean, the font configuration. And then let's create all the views and components. So I will create components. So I create first component for us is a view component, that is counter. Let's say h2 counter component, and we need one more component, that is employees component. Let's say h2 employees component, and another component we want is user list component. Let's say h2 user list. So user list component, that's fine. And also we need one more component for navbar. You can create for navbar. Okay, let's say h2 navbar. Okay, so all these components, let me connect with routing. So you go to router index.js. Yeah, here for empty path slash home is there, and let's take so let's take here path slash counter. Okay, so slash counter, I'll go to counter component, and this will be the counter component. It will import from our components folder, and the same way I'll copy here. This is employees, this is employees and employees. Employees component, and one last one is the users component. This will be the user list. Okay, user list component. Okay, so routing has been done. Now go to app.view. In this, I will configure router view so that all the routing configuration will come here. Okay, just home page, and I just need also navbar. Okay, navbar and home page. Okay, fine. And a small configuration I want to do is for prettier. Mm, so prettier, reformat, optimize, arrange code. Yep, apply because it will format the code if something here and there, like something here you made it, you save it, will come in a proper location. Okay, this for formatting the code. Okay, um, that's fine. And let's jump in for the navbar quickly. So nav tag with the class nav bar dark and nav bar no bg success and navbar expand sm in that one container, one router link slash for the home, and let's say this is vuex. Okay, that's fine, and give the class called navbar brand. Okay, you get a vuex, and also under that one collapse, and one more class is let me expand navbar collapse one ul sorry ul li router link to something here is counter. This will be slash counter. Let me give the class navbar nav item. Here is nav link. Okay, so I got one. Let's copy. So this is employees and this is user list. Sorry, user list. So path, this is employees and this is users. Okay, is that users? Counter employees and users. Okay, right. All right. Yeah, that's fine. And let's make the home page to be the Vuex image. So I brought Vuex image from the official website. You can search for a Google Vuex, the vuex.vuejs.org, and here I got this image. I can save image as. So I got that image here on my desktop. And so what I do is I go to assets and I'll paste the Vuex, and where does this image is coming from? This is the home page, right? For empty slash. So let me go to a home page in the router index.js. Go to home page. In this, I don't need division class home and all, not required. Just simple division one image src is assets slash vuex.png. You get the image, and let's keep it center. This you can just write to the class called text center. Okay, that's all. And you want to have some margin. The same margin of 5 comes in center. Okay, that's all is your home page. Just one simple image which contains the flow and all, which helps a lot for creating this Vuex application. Okay, the flow and all. That's fine. And now let's jump into the counter. Okay, and let's make the counter with local setup. So go to counter. Let's make some default setup container, one row, single column, p.h3 counter. Okay, so let's say something called text success. Okay, so let's make some margin of 3 and one paragraph, just some lorem 30 tab, this introduction content, and you can just give the class called font. uh, font style italic. Okay, so let's make a counter with the card and increments. So okay, let's keep this container as it is, and let's start with another container. One row, call md4 one card body. So I'll say here p.h3 with some display 3, some 9 number. Okay, so for the card you just say some shadow. Okay, under that I'll have a button with the class btn minus success, and yep, this is increment. Okay, and let's add some margin. Okay, let's have few other buttons. Let's say btn hyphen warning, and this is btn hyphen danger. This will be a decrement button, and this is just increment by. Okay, fine. So I got structure ready. So now let's make this component from I mean without Vuex. Okay, local state management. So for local state, what you do is here data. Data is actually a function. So that function returns an object. So that contains the count value of type 0. Okay, and then you have methods. What type of methods you have is three methods for increment, decrement, and increment by. So increment, okay, they say click increment is one function. Okay, click increment is one function. So what it does is it just update your counter. Okay, so this dot count is equal to this dot count plus one. That's it. And let's take one more method, click decrement. Let's make it as minus one. And let's make one more, click increment by is a function. So what it does is it takes a value, what is that you're gonna update, and just take it as value. Okay, increment, decrement, and increment by is as a value. Okay, so I have three functions and the state. Now let's connect this state data here. So you can use the view expression, just say count. You get the count become 0 because it was 0. When a click event happens, I have to call these functions. Okay, so let's say at click happens is equal to click increment as a function. So simply it just increments it. That's fine, and there's also a copy of it. So let's make this is for click decrement, and other one. So click increment by, you have to provide a value or just say by. Okay. So now how this works is, let's see, increment is working. Perfect. Increment by is incrementing by 5. Okay. So that's fine, cool. So this is done, right? So this is just a local local state management. Now let's convert this whole setup to Vuex. Okay. So how to make a Vuex setup? Don't worry, we already have Vuex here. If you go to store, there's a folder called store. In that index.js, yeah, this is actually your Vuex configuration. So create store, which contains state, mutations, actions, and modules. And this store has configured to the application in main.js is here, use store. Okay, so with this store is gonna work. So when you see back to our index, yeah. So now state data is empty. So if state data is empty, when you inspect and go with the dev tools of Vue.js, okay, you can search for Vue.js dev tools. So and here I'll search for Vuex state. Okay, now state data actually will be empty. For example, where you can see um, UX right state. I think. View actions, no actions, no mutations, nothing. Okay, it's not showing, but state just empty state. Okay, fine. So now what we have to do is we just need to increment this happens with Vuex. So to create a counter configuration in this, actually one thing what we can do is we can create a state directly here in the, come on, I think it's got stuck. But man, it's not allowing me to type anything. It's working right. Then it's a problem. Once again, go to store. Yeah, it's working. Yeah, one thing is you can configure the counter state and all here. But the problem is if you start configuring everything, so every state you have to configure here and every action you configure here. So it'll be like mess up because actions, state, everything you configure in one file. It not actually looks good. So for that we use actually modules concept. So the plan is I create a new directory called modules. So for every component, I'll start with one modules. Okay. In modules, I create one JavaScript that is counter dot module. Okay. So here I say export default. I say name spaced is true. Okay. And in this, I'll take state and mutations and actions. Okay, so this is slight different than your Redux toolkit. Here we have a state, same like to have a Redux store, and mutations. Mutations are just like your reducers, and actions is just like your actions. Okay, when you take the diagram, let me explain. See, this is your view component. This is gonna be dispatching an action. Okay, that action will commits the mutation, and that mutation will updates the state, and it will run on the view. Okay, and this action itself is connect with a backend API, and this mutations also have connection with their the dev tools which we have open. Okay, so now story is only between these four. So actions, mutations, and state. So actions we're gonna execute, and mutations are just like a reducer, so which will update your state data. Okay, so how you configure them is first we start with a state. So first of all, when you go with your counter, so what was the state you taken? This count 0. So same thing what you have to do is just say counter where count value 0. Okay, that's to become your stater. And mutations. Mutations are just like your reducer. So I have three activities I have to make: increment, decrement, and increment by. Okay, so what you do is increment counter. Okay, I'll take like this. Increment counter is a function. Increment counter is a function which will take up the state, and what it does is this dot counter, no, I think it's state dot, yeah, so state dot counter dot count is equal to state dot counter dot count plus 1. Okay, yeah, like this. So but this was not giving a proper hint for you. To have a proper hint for you, first as soon as you create a counter module, so you have to configure it with the store. So how you configure is the root store, import counter module from this counter module, and now what you do is state counter state will be counter module dot state. So this is the configuration, and also no mutations to configure because we have mutations and actions taken inside the module only. And you can configure the module that is my counter module. The only thing is as soon as you create a module, you must have to register with this modules and the state. so that it will have an idea what is that activity you're going to perform. And as soon as I have configured this counter module in my global state, so what happens is if you refresh and go with the dev tools, so you can find, see, counter module has been configured with the state data counter with count 0. Okay, so that's what the counter data which we have configured state. Okay, and this is done. Now let's say decrement decr underscore counter is one function that will take up the state again. Okay, so state dot counter dot count is equal to state dot counter dot count minus 1. Okay, and one more thing is increment by. So this will take, see, this is just take 1 and 1. This will take actually payload. So increment by, then how you can take the payload is the second option. You take the payload. Okay, so you may write payload dot value. Okay, so payload is actually an object. So in that, the value what you have passed, that will update to the counter. Okay, I have 3 mutations and let's create actions for them. So let's say increment counter is a function. So what happens is it will return this will take something called commit, because as per the diagram it will commit the mutation. Okay, so commit the mutation which I want is increment the counter. See, I'll show you why this commit. See, on the home page, see, this action is gonna commit the mutation. Okay, so in the this action is gonna commit my mutation increment counter. Okay, same way I'll take the other one. This is decrement counter. Okay, so this will make decrement counter commit, and then increment counter by is my action. So let's say increment counter by. Okay, it's gonna commit. But one more thing is this is taking extra called payload. So you will get the payload as a second parameter. You can pass on the payload as a second parameter as it is what you have passed. Okay, so it should be an object with a value. Okay, fine. Now, so we got state ready, mutations ready, and also actions ready. Okay, so I'll show you actions, mutations, state, component, everything is ready, and make them connection. Before I start with the connection, I go to store. Here I will add the getters. I will add some getters. So counter get counter state. So how can you fetch the counter state is this is a function is going to return this dot uh, this dot. Okay, actually this will take up the state as a parameter. So state dot counter state dot counter. Okay, so this is one getter function because you want to fetch. Generally in React.js we use a use selector hook, but in Vue.js we need to write some getter function so that will fetch your counter, because the specific state data if you want to fetch it for your what's called component. Okay, because here the state in the component we need to get data from the state, so that should be this using getter. Okay, so everything is done. Now jump into the counter. But before I jump into counter, I don't want to touch this file for counter. So what I do is I just create a vuex counter and then I'll update. So what you do is in the same components, I create one more folder for vuex. So let's copy this and keep it in this, and I'll change it to rename as vuex counter. Okay, so this will be vuex counter. I just change the name. Okay, and where do you have to change it in the router? I'll just change this to vuex counter. Okay, now it's Vuex counter. Okay, so it should work with the local data. Okay, fine. If I switch between, it's gone. Okay, fine. So we have taken a separate component, the same setup. Now the next step is I don't need to have a local data and I don't need to have local state management. The very first thing is I want to get the state data. How you get state data is there is a predefined property called computed property, which is here map getters. This will import from the Vuex. Map getters will import from Vuex. So what is this map getter is, which is the map function for fetching the getters. Okay, so from the store there are some getters, so that will map the state data over here. So in this, so what you're gonna map is I'll say some counter state with my what was that you created, get counter state. So you just specify get counter state. That's all. So what happened? This function returns me the counter state that assigned to the variable called counter state. So now what I do is in this counter, I'll say counter state dot count. So what happened is a value 0. So now this 0 is actually coming from the store because counter state which we got from the store and that one. If you want to even confirm, you go to module and I'll change this to 10. So what happened? This become 10. I'll change to 15. This become 15. Okay, that way. I'll make it 0. So it's 0. Okay. Now this is done. This has been configured the state. Now I don't need to maintain the local data anymore, and I don't need to have functions like this. Okay, I have to call action because I have to call dispatch actions. So this dot you can have access to store directly using a property called this dot store directly dot dispatch. You have to dispatch an action. What is the action is counter module, the module what you have created slash the action. Okay, and same story here, this dot dollar store dot dispatch. So here I'm gonna specify counter module slash decrement counter. Okay, and for this one I have to call this is increment by, but this should accept one extra parameter because as per my module configuration which will take up the payload, but payload is an object which contains a value as a property. So what you do is comma an object where the value goes to be my value. Okay, this will become your payload. So this payload will taken for this function. This payload it is committing this mutation, and this payload will update your counter and this counter, and that counter can be accessed by this getter to this your component, and that state data we were displaying here. Okay, so now check, I refresh, this increment counter is incrementing. And if you want to see this state actions and all, you go to the dev tools. You can select the second option. Yeah, Vuex actions. Yeah, you have action. So increment counter, decrement counter, everything was started and incremented. Everything is still there. Okay, and you want to see the state data. Now the counter value is 4, like that. Decrement is 2. Now it's 2. Okay, so you can easily track the actions and the state data here. Okay, fine. And one last check what we have to do is when I increment and I move on to another component and came back, it is still there, right? I move on to the employees and came back, it is still there. So now this counter is completely converted to Vuex. So now let's start with employees. So now for employees, what you do is go to components called employees. So let's make the what's called design. Okay. Yeah. So I will start with one container, one row, single column, let's say p.h3 employees, and let's say text success, and I have one paragraph with a class font style italic and lorem 30 tab. Just this a basic heading, and I also say margin top 3. Okay, and under that I need to have list of employees. Yep. So can we start with another container row and call MD the stake 6 tab. Yeah, in this I need to have all the list of employees. So, but before that I need to have employees data. So for that employees data, yes, I'm using the regular JSON placeholder users. Yeah, this one. So let's take up the fields. How you take the state data, that is data is a function that returns an object where employees will be an array. In that the first object is ID and second object, sorry, array. Okay, and third one quickly will make okay, so 5 employees data is there. Now what I do is here, back here, so I have to loop through and display. So I'll write UL in this li. So here I write v for employee of employees, and also let's add a key that is employee.id, and let's add employee.name. So you get the name. Yep. So let's give a classes. Let's say list group, and this is gonna be the list group item. Okay, you wanna have some color. I say list group item success. Okay, and I also have the checkboxes. So let's add a checkbox. Input type checkbox and the class form check input. That's all. Yep, you get a checkbox for selecting this data. One extra property I forgot, it is selected will be false by default. So let's make this guy for all. You have to make this extra to have selected data. Okay. Okay, fine. I have all this. Now data has been done. Okay, so when I make a selection, I need to update the state. So how do I do? Yeah, let me create a method. So where is data close? Data close here, and then they say methods will be an object where update selected will be a function. Okay, when you make a check for the checkbox, I have to make this guy's selected value to be true. Okay, so just pass on the employee ID. So what I do is, so I'll say this dot employees is equal to this dot employees dot map each employee. So I'll say if employee dot id is matched with my employee empid, then for that case I return an object where all the employees properties and is selected will be not employee dot is selected, so opposite to true. Okay, if it is false, opposite to false, and also if else, return employee as it is unchanged. Okay, so I have a function for update selected. Okay, the is selected value. So now I have to connect with the my input. So I say here at mm, let's say on change. So, okay, on change is equal to update selected. Okay, is a function which you have to pass employee.id. Okay, I'm passing it. But I have to see the state changes. So can we write a pre-tag expression where all the employees, we have all list of employees, so all are just false. So when I select for Lenin, yes, it's become true, and when I make it uncheck, it's become false. Yeah, perfect. So I don't need this now. Okay, so all selected data I need to display on the right side. So this is the first call MD6. So another call MD6. Yeah, in this I have a card with a card body, and instead of card body, okay, I'll do one thing. I'll just take a division and then card. Okay, I have to write multiple cards based on the selection. So you have to write a loop through. So V for let's know this employee of employees. Okay, employee of employees, and the key will be employee.id. Okay, so in this card, I'll make a ULLI. Um, let's make the name or employee.id. Can we start with like this? Some ID, span with the class, font with bold, and let's make employee.id. Okay, I got all the IDs. Yeah, let's make for the card. I'll say some margin top and bottom two, some space. Yep, card body, list group, item success for some color. Okay, that's fine. This is list group, and for this one, list group item. Okay, so I got an ID, and same way, copy that. So ID, name, and its email. Okay, so let's say the name, and this is email. Okay, that's fine. But I'm getting all the records, but I don't need that. I just need only the one which was selected. So where do I write a condition? So for, can I do one thing? Can I make a looping for this division, so that for this card I'll say v if employee dot is selected, so that your card will display. Okay, I refresh. Now when I select Lenin, Erwin, this guy, I disselect, deselect, and deselect. Okay, that's fine, simple. Okay, I make a looping here, and then if selected for card and all this. Okay, so now this example is perfectly done without Vuex. When you make a selection, so two people I have selected, I got two. But when I move on to user list and came back, this selection was gone. Because for example, you have some product items and you select one product. Okay, you select some few of products and you went to the cart page. So now the selection has gone. Okay, so but I have to reside that. I have to, preserve the state data which you have selected. Okay, so for that we must have to move on to the Vuex. So let's convert this example with Vuex. I don't want to touch this component, so I'll make a copy of the same component in Vuex folder. So let's copy employees, and the Vuex I'll paste it as a Vuex dot employee, so it will become Vuex is the name. Yeah, everything is common, and let's go to router. I'll change this to Vuex employees. Okay, I just only change the name, nothing much. Still working, but data lapse. I need to make this to happen with Vuex. Before just start with the Vuex, can we do one last thing? Because for employees, I don't need to have all this data list out here. Okay, why can't you create a service for this? Okay, so my plan here is I create one directory called services. Okay, I create one JavaScript, let's say employee service. So export class employee service. So here I'll say static employee list is equal to an array. So can we have all these employees in this my service? Okay. So can we quickly write a function? So get all employees. So get all employees. So this will return this dot employee list. Okay, this function. So I just simply call what here? Just say employee service dot get all employees. That's all. Uh, simple line of code which imports service. So it's still able to work. Yeah, it's still working. That's fine. Yeah. So now let's convert to Vuex. But when you convert to Vuex, what are the things you have to make? First thing, we have a data. So this data we have to take, and this methods also we have to take just one method and one state data. Okay. So what you have to do is you create a module for counter, same like that. You have to create another module. So I create new JavaScript. Let's say employee dot module. Okay. So here you write export default objects where namespaced is true, comma. You need to write a state and mutations and actions. Okay, so before I proceed with all this, let me configure this with my global store. So how you configure import what's that employee module from my module, and let's say employee state will be employee module dot state. Okay, this is comma. Okay, and also configure the module here employee module. Okay, you have two modules for two components. Let's switch to employee module. Yeah. So what is your state? State will be employees where employees. Just take for avoid confusion employee list you take. Okay. Employees will be employee service dot get all employees. This is your initial state, right? Because this is local data, so I just brought it from the local service. Okay. This become your state. Now for mutations, what are the changes we are doing here? Update selected. It is updating all the employees in the state. So what I do is, so update selected is equal to a function. So this function have access to state. Okay. So this dot sorry, not this, state dot employee list dot employees is equal to again employee. So state dot employee list dot employees dot map each employee. So the condition goes to be oh, it's not equal to, dude. It's a colon. Okay, it's an object, right? So it's a property and value is a function. Okay, I forgot. Employee, you have to write a condition, same condition, right? Same like this. So can I copy this? Yep. So same like this, but it's not employee ID. But how you get employee ID? Yeah, you get from payload. Okay. So how we get the payload? Payload dot employee ID, and make sure while passing payload, you pass an object employee ID. Okay. Fine. So mutation ready. Correct. Mutations ready. Let's make action. So I say update selected, but here also update selected, and the in the component also we have update selected, right? Update selected. So can we change once? Instead of update selected, I'll say can be change here only. Okay, change update selected, change update selected. Okay, okay, change selected. Okay, is one function. Okay, this is my action. So change selected. So what you have to do is you have to provide what the commit and also the payload. Okay, so here I written I commit the update selected provided my payload. That's all. Okay, so action is committing the mutation. The mutation is changing the state, and this state have to access. How you access? You have to take getter on the global. So same like this, comma get employee state will be a function which have access to the state. So I return state dot employee state dot employee list. Okay, this particular data I'm going to return. Okay, so module ready and getter ready. Now jump into Vuex. Yep. So first of all, I make sure I don't have any error. Yep. And you can check the configuration also. You go to here. See, two modules has configured now. Counter module have this, and employee module have the array of 5 objects, all the data. Okay. So fine. State configuration is done successfully. Next, in the component, first of all, data. I don't need actually data. I can get the data from the store with a property called computed. So let's say computed will be map the getters import from Vuex. Okay, import from what is import dude? Yeah, map getter from Vuex. Here I say just employee state. 1 second. Yeah, employee state. Employee state is get employee state. That's all simple. Yeah, so this employee state from here you can access everything. So what you have to loop is it's not just employees, employee state dot employees, correct. Here also employee state dot employees. Okay, I hope that's fine. You check. Yes, we can able to get the data. But when I make a selection, I'm not getting the updated value because when you make the selection, it was updating locally. I don't need that. I need to update in the global store. So this dot dollar store dot dispatch the action what you have to pass. Action is employee module dot change selected and the payload will be what was that? Employee ID is my employee ID. Okay, it should be an object taking employee ID and this employee ID object taken as a payload and here payload from payload I can get employee ID and this all this story happens. Okay, so I think that's it. Yes, we have done with this and I don't need data property anymore. Okay, no service, nothing. Yeah, see, no local state. Only thing is getting from the store and updating to store. It's getting from store and updating to store. Yeah, now let's check. It's been successful. Refresh. Yeah. So here, employees, I select Lenin and Erwin. So two data has been selected. I went to user list and came back. See, data still there. One problem which is the selected has gone. Selected, how you do for input? Yeah. So colon checked is equal to employee dot is selected value. Okay, that's all. So it's there. Okay, you wanna see? Refresh. We go to employees. I select the two people. See 135 I selected. I went to counter and came back, still there. I go to counter, increment it or decrement it, go here, came back, still there, and employee is also still there. Okay, all right. So we successfully done with these two components converted to Vuex, and now let's start with the user list. So user list will make it a default data, I mean local state management, and we'll convert. So let's start with user list. So let me close all the components. Yep. Go to components, user list. So let's make the setup here with now as of now local data. Okay. So what you do is yeah, one container, one row, single column, p.h3 user list. So I say text success and then a paragraph lorem 30 tab. Okay, and let me give a class called font style italic. Yep, and also make some margin of the 3. Okay, so under that I had to fetch data from server. So that I can create a state. So first data is actually a function. So this function returns the state, but is use what we do. Loading is false. Users will be empty array and error message null. Okay, so I have this my state because loading to have loading spinner before you fetch data from server, and this is actual data from server, and this is the error message. And so let's make the function called created, because when actually the component has been created, I have to make a server call. So can we make this as async for server call? So I'll make try and catch. This will become the error. Okay. So here I need to say let data URL is equal to. So what is the data URL for fetching data? This one placeholder slash users. Okay. Now let response is equal to await Axios. You need to import Axios from the library called Axios. So Axios dot get of data URL. Okay, you get the response, and this response I need to set to my local. So this dot users is equal to response dot data. Okay, and I also make the loading flag. So this dot loading is equal to true for loading spinner, and as soon as you receive data, you make this loading to false for stop the spinner. And lastly, if you get the error also, I'll stop the spinner is equal to false, and this dot error message is equal to my error as well. So let's store this error data with error message. Okay, fine. Now it's done. So can we have a spinner component with while for spinning? Okay, I think we need to have a spinner. You can just Google search for spinner. For example, go to Google, loading JF, images, transparent. This one. Let me save image as on my desktop. Loading. Let's copy this image. Keep it in the assets folder. And let's have this loading with one component. So in components, I create one more component called spinner. So I say a division with image. src will be slash asset slash loading jf, and let me give the class called margin auto and dblock display block. Okay, so this is a spinner. You want to see the spinner how it looks like. You go to app. Okay, above the nav bar you write a spinner. So here is a spinner, it looks like. Okay, this spinner to display while fetching data from server. So I don't need this. Okay, no import statement. Okay, so for user list, I have to display the spinner also. Yeah, this is one container. So one more container, one container, one row, single column. I write here v if it is loading. Okay, if it is loading, I'll display the spinner. Okay, nice. And for error message, okay, I write if condition if not loading and there is an error message. If there is an error message, so on row column, let's say p the class font with bold and text danger. Let's say the error message. Okay, so we got loading, error message is done, and then now quickly write your data. Your container, one more row, single column. Here I write a condition is if not loading and users dot length is greater than 0. Okay, more data, then display. So let's start with the table. Uh, table hover text center and table striped. Okay, yeah, I write t head, t table row, t head star 6 tab. Okay, so I need to have the serial number and name of the person, email of the person, I guess website of the person, and company of the person, and location. Okay, this data was there in here. Okay, so for t head, I'll give the class called bg secondary and text white. Okay, and let's have data. How you have data? I have t body table row. Let me loop it. So we for not employee, it's a user in users, and the key is user dot id. Okay, so can I have td expression? Let's say user dot id. Okay, so you get all the user IDs, and let's make name and all. So can we write name, email, website, and company. But company is actually an object, so I need just name of a company dot name, and location. I think it's address. Address also an object. Address dot city. Okay, that's all. Okay, fine. See, you get the loading flag. See, I got loading flag and also the content. And also let me check the error message. So can we have this some wrong URL so that see you get the error message also if something goes wrong. So that's properly works. Yep. So this component is ready with the regular server connection and fetching data that are local because my data is still local. Okay now. So now the concept is how to make the same example for fetching data from server because the complete flow we'll see now. Okay, from the backend API to the action, mutation, state, and your component. So how to make this complete story with userless. So to start with that, I just take a copy of the same component, um, copy userless, paste it in the Vuex with a name called Vuex. Okay, I'll change the name to Vuex user list, and I go to the router once and change this also Vuex user list. Okay, so now this is become Vuex user list data is perfectly working fine. So now let's make this to happen with a Vuex configuration. So to start with Vuex for this server connection, see when you look at the previous example of employee or counter, that was local state change. So we just have only the function for increment counter, decrement counter, the actual mutation, right? But for fetching data from server, you have three set of mutations. Okay, so one is for novel request, and one is for success, one is for failure. Because we need login flag, and we need data, we need the error. So three things required. So three set of mutations required for every API call. Okay, so I'll start with that. So just close all the tabs. Yeah. In modules, I create one fresh JavaScript, that is users dot module or user list dot module to export default something. So in that I need namespace is true. Okay. So you need to have a state and actions. Sorry, order doesn't matter. Mutations, state, mutations, and actions. Okay. So let me just connect with the global store. Same like here. Import user module from users.module, and let's say users state will be user module dot state. User module dot state. Okay, and let's configure the module users module. Okay, getter will write in future because we don't have anything now. Okay, so for state, I'll say user list will have three things. What is that? Loading. Okay, loading users and error message. It should be null. Okay, so when you start with mutation, I have three set of mutations just for fetching data only, but three set of mutations. So what is that? Is get users request is one mutation. What it does is it just take the state. This is just for loading flag. Okay, so it's make state dot user list dot loading is equal to true. That's all. Simple. Nothing much. Okay, this is your one mutation. Okay, next yeah, so next thing is for success. So I'll copy. So get users success. When you get successful data, what you do? You get the payload from successful data. So first I'll make loading false to stop the spinner, and I receive the payload data that I need to add to users. So state dot users list dot users is equal to payload dot users. Okay, payload must be an object which contains users, which represents your data. And one last thing, get users failed. Okay, request success failed. So if it is failed, I need to have a error message. So I also have payload. Okay, loading become false, and the state dot user list dot error message will be payload dot error. Okay, payload now this time provide the error. Okay, fine. So three mutations is done. So all the three mutations I'll make with only one action. Okay, let's see. Get users is one action which contains a function. So this is asynchronous. Okay, in this I have some try catch. Yeah, here I'll make a server call based on the result of server call. I'll commit these uh, these mutations. So let's take the commit. Okay, So first of all, I'll commit the regular one. See, generally what happens is if you go to the component here in user is what you're doing. Before I make server call, I make loading to true, right? So same thing I'm doing. See that loading true happens with this mutation. So I'm committing that mutation first. So get users request. Okay, done. And after that, let's make a server call. How you make a server call? Let data URL and response. Same story. You get the response, and this response the data you're adding to users, right? But how I'm adding, you can't add here. You get this. Need to invoke or commit this action. So payload will add. So I'll make like this commit get user success, and the payload will be an object because you're looking for an object with users. So users will be response dot data. The data which you get from server is response dot data. I am just adding to the object with a property called users, and this whole thing is payload, and that payload will receive here, and payload dot users I'm retrieving the property and adding to the state data. Okay, and lastly, when you commit the error, say commit get sorry get users failed, and here also see it looking for payload dot error. So I make this is a payload, and here error will be my error. That's all. Okay, this error will be taken payload dot error and the state. Okay, that's all. So now just only one action which internally calling a three set of mutations. Okay, this is the way you have to call for fetching data from server, especially for API calls. Okay, yep. So this file is done, but I need to make getters. Yeah. So let's say get user state is equal to a function which access to the state. So return state dot employee, not employee, I think it's user state dot user list. Yes, that's all. You go to user list, you have all the three. Okay, so getter is ready, file is ready. Move on to user list vuex. Yep. So here, I don't need data for, yeah. How you get data then? You need to compute property of map getters from vuex. So here I'll say, so what is the property you have to map? Some your own. Let's say user state will be, that's a user state or user state, whatever will be. The method name should be proper. What is that? Get user state. Get users state. You can access the user state and which contains everything. Loading users error message. So when I go back here, this is what? Yeah, loading. This is users state dot loading. This is user state dot loading and user state dot error message. Display also user state dot error message. And lastly here user state dot loading. Again user state dot users. What else here also? Users user state dot users. Okay, that's all. So now check. Oh, you don't have data. Problem why you don't have data? Because users module is there, array with empty. Because why you are only fetching empty data, because in my store I have this empty array. I have this empty I fetch. I just brought data, right? Empty data, but you're not dispatch an action for fetching actual data, right? You not dispatch this action for fetching actual data. So simply what you do is when it is created, when this is created, I'll dispatch. Okay, simply I'll dispatch the action. So say in Axios. Yeah, here this dot dollar store dot dispatch my action. What is that? Users module dot get users. That's all simple. The moment you make a dispatch, then it will see what happens. I'll show you. Complete diagram. Now see. See, I got data. See, from the component, this is my component. Okay. Yeah, see the flow. Components, you're dispatching an action. See, from the component, I am dispatching one action. Okay, go inside the action. What action does? This action is committing. This action depend on the backend API. It's have a connection with. See, my action have a connection with the backend API. Depend on that, it is committing the mutation. See, it's committing one mutation, two mutation, third mutation. Depend on the responsibility, it is committing the mutation. And what happened? For example, you get successful data. It is committing success and data. So this mutation is going to update the state. See, this data, if you go to mutation, it is updating the state. Okay, this is your global state. Okay, it is updated. And this state data, how it has been injected to view component is this state data, the whole module is configured to global store where you have a getter. This is access to the user list state, and through that getter in the component using the map getter, I am connected to my state. So your component has connected with state. So through map getter you got a state, and from that state only I am retrieving all this data. So that's where it's been connected. So the complete flow has seen. Okay. So now when you go to user list, loading flag and data. When you go to DevTools, also users module, you have all records, and you can even check the Vue.js actions. So get users start, and you got the data. Okay, users state, user list, all the list of users you have. Okay, so this is how actually you can make a Vuex with Vue.js application. I hope you got this. Okay, because we understand local state changes. Okay, with regular, counter, and also how to handle the form data with Vuex we have seen, and also how to make the backend API calls with the Vuex. Okay, the complete flow we have seen. I hope that gets clear, and thank you so much for joining, and please subscribe to my channel, and we'll meet in next video with another interesting concepts.